Hey, good morning or good afternoon, if you will. It's the Fort Worth Playboy, and this is the Fort Worth Playboy morning show, and it is still morning, at least on the West Coast. And I'm glad you're here. We had a little delay getting this bad boy started today. Good morning, Bunny. And what do we cover here on the Fort Worth Playboy morning show? We cover game, pickup, relationships, and sex. So if you have any questions, which I hope someone does this morning, go to YouTube and put it in the comment box, and please let me know, and I will do my absolute best to answer it during the broadcast. And the first thing that we normally do is we do start off with a maxim from Chateau Artiste. Today is maxim number 90. Bitterness surges in a sexual market that is fully liberated, producing a surplus of incel beta males and pump and dump beta females. And you can actually kind of like see it on the timeline that there's so much bitterness between the sexes right now that these two things stand out. Women are being ignored and put on the sidelines, and to at least in their estimation, being stuck with not the best choices, which is relatively new because the choices weren't so many, and a lot more beta males being left out of the mix. And of course, there's a reason that because they're allowed to opt out now. There's other things that they can go into. They can go into video games. They can go into their career. They can go into sports. They can be distracted. And then they can voice their opinion from the sideline through the internet. Whereas back in the day, a guy would opt out. He would simply go to his job in the warehouse. He would drive a forklift for 8 or 10 hours and sweat his ass off, and then go home and drink and watch TV and go to bed and get up and do it again. But today, a guy that's opted out can do those things, but also bitch about it on Twitter or on the internet or in a forum. And it tends to amplify itself and, being around other people that are dissatisfied. So the bitterness surges in a sexual market that is fully liberated, which is pretty much where we're at this point. And again, it leaves the guys on the sideline unhappy, and it leaves women, mostly mids or girls that don't get enough attention, or they don't get the attention of the men that they feel that they deserve, or the men that they've had sex with, but are not that interested in a relationship quite often. They are all left on the sideline to bitch and complain about it. And I know that he wrote this years before like social media really came on. So he was able to see ahead of time that this is what happens. And it's not pleasant. It's probably one of the more negative maxims, but it's still a reflection of a rule when you're dealing with the sexes. Next slide. Let's see what we got. Okay, so nuclear Cordelio. I hope I say that right. Drink dates are king. There is no better option to get to know a woman on a first date. And I have preached this, and I surprisingly still have to reinforce, because I'll have guys go, hey, I got this girl. I'm going to go out with her. I can't think of anything creative to do. And I'm like, you're not supposed to be creative. You need a plan that will put you in a sexy, controlled atmosphere where you can seduce her and move her towards sex. That's what a date is. It's a fun-filled social meeting that can lead to sex. That's why the leading to sex part is different than you meeting up with your sister or your friend or your buddies. The date means it can end in sex. You're not meeting up just to be buddies. So drinks, alcohol is sex fuel. And again, if you go with too much fuel, you'll flood the engine. So it's calculated, it's measured, and you have to be careful, but it's part of it. And 1 or 2 drinks for younger women, it helps take the edge off of their nervousness. And for older women, one also does, because girls always get nervous at every age, but it also kind of like gives them a break from the same old bullshit. It gives them a break from, their divorce settlement that they just went through, the kids fighting with their boss at work, all these things. Having a drink with a man in a nice, cool, dark place is an adult activity, and they can enjoy themselves and like switch it off. They can stop being a mom. They can stop being a daughter. They can stop being a sister, and they can actually be a sexy girl that is in front of a sexy, charismatic man. And that's you. So drinks are where it's at. And again, I'm going to reiterate, until you start fucking your girl regularly, it's drinks. No hiking, no rock climbing, no concerts, no movies, no dinner because no one wants to fuck on a full stomach. No picnics, drinks. 1 or 2 drinks, you bump to the next place, 1 or 2 drinks. Hey, let's go back to my place. I have something. You can meet my midget. I have a guitar collection. You can see my art collection. Whatever it meant, just give her plausible deniability. Again, drink dates are king. And it also tells her that you know what you're doing. And again, if a girl insists on dinner, block her. Move on to the next girl. You don't have to bend to that. You want to be around girls that are compliant to what you want to do, especially in the beginning. Any girl that's like trying to change the plans, trying to change the meetup place, trying to, go to dinner at her favorite restaurant. No, not until they've invested in you. Again, drinks. Drink dates are king. And that's the key. You want something, it's kind of like guys go, well, I've gone to coffee before and I fucked this girl after that. Well, I'm like, how many times? Well, like once or twice. Let's run to my place so I can give you that book to borrow. That's a good one, Bunny. That's very good. Most of these girls don't read, but we're going to go with this because I think that's a good one. Let's run to my place to give you that book. I like that. That's good. But now I've lost my train of thought. I always can't read the comments, even if they're good. The point is that you want to be in a place that's sexy. And I'm sure I've lost my thought, and I'll watch this back. Any excuse works, like Bunny says. That's what you have to have. Any excuse will get her back to your place and gives you plausible deniability. Again, the drinks, they're going to push for other things sometimes. And if they don't drink, well, you do have to do coffee then. If you don't drink, you still call them out and have them meet up for drinks, and then you just don't have to drink anything alcohol. If they're underage, not too underage, of course, but they're not of age to drink, and you're legally able to be around each other, Bunny has a good book, Cheap Dates That Don't Feel Cheap, and it gives you some options. But if you're an adult and you're dating adults and both can drink, you need to meet up for drinks. It's sexy. It gets the job done. And worst case scenario, she doesn't look like her pictures. She's heavier than you thought she would be. There's no vibe. She has a bad attitude. You can pay for your drinks and leave. That way you're not stuck. Dinner is always usually an hour to 2 hours minimum investment. And you don't want to be rock climbing with somebody that's, ill-tempered, that you want to get out of there. You're stuck. Concerts, no way. Just know drinks work. It gives you an idea to feel, and you can move her towards sex. You can move her to the next location and then back to your place. But that is why drinks are king. And Nuke has it down. He's got Dallas on lock. Next slide. I've been married for 20 years. Let me give you some advice. Be cautious with this. Be careful how you apply this. Most long-term married men married the first girl who touched his penis. He wanted to get the wife box checked off fast so he could go to work, drink, get high, and pursue his hobbies. That is most men, there are some, if you know his marriage and you know his relationship, if you know the relationship and it's something that you would desire for yourself, and it's a respected relationship with his wife, and you, of course, you take his advice. But otherwise, the vast majority of men don't know how they met their wife. It's usually like through an introduction, or they stumbled on it, or like she ran into his car, or they were high school friends. I mean, most of the time he can't tell you how it happened because he did not do it on purpose. She may have actually spotted him and gotten his proximity. He still doesn't know that. That's the real deal. They don't know how they got married. They just know that they got married and now they want to give you advice. It's not the best thing. And they don't know how they stayed married. They stayed married mostly because she's very forgiving. That's most of the reason, or it's just too inconvenient to divorce him. And she must be pleasant enough to be around. Again, a lot of marriages are decided simply by the woman's management of her appearance and her personality over time. But be careful how you apply this. Most long-term married men and know this, and when I say a high percentage, I mean like 80 or 90% don't know how they got married, and they sure don't know how they stayed married, mostly because that was the deal, was he would do his thing and she would do her things. Most men just want to get this thing checked off so they can move on and continue drinking excessively and hunting and fishing or working on their car or, playing Frisbee golf or chain smoking or whatever. That's what most men's, that and eating and drinking are most men's hobbies. So just know that. And I just threw that in as a warning. It never hurts to kind of like know what to avoid at the same time. Next slide. One thing, Matt has a question here, and we will cover this. This is something I'll cover. We can cover on Saturday. Bunny's a sex expert. She wrote How to Fuck Like a Porn Star. She's got like 4 or 5 books under that. And that would be a good question for us when we're together on Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Matt, we'll circle back. And like I always said, when I see something that's good for both of us, and you will get a better answer, and we can come prepared. Because it's a good question. It's a solid question. And it's a question that everybody can apply at some point in their life. And I appreciate you putting that out there. Saturday morning we can, and we'll record it, of course. We love that you're here live, but we can record it and it'll be up. Next slide is I can count on one hand the number of men I've known who regularly bang 9 or 10s. If you live in Des Moines, Iowa, it isn't you. And this, I put this out there not so much to point out that there's not a lot of 9 and 10s, which is the first thing. There's not many of them. And they are kind of located in little clusters of like New York City, Miami, LA, and to a lesser extent in very small communities like in Dallas or Chicago. You'll find smaller, wealthier communities, affluent communities where these girls will be, the trophy wives. But generally, to see more of them walking around or out and about, you're talking New York City, Miami, LA, but LA's less of a pedestrian area. But it's to really reinforce how important your environment is and logistics. Really, if you want to even just be around more women and you work on an oil rig for 2 weeks and 2 weeks off, but you live in a town of 500 people, you're in bad environments. And if you want to be in a good environment, I've had guys that kind of like live outside of the city. They'll get an Airbnb on Friday and Saturday, and they'll just come into the city with a plan and go to the bars or have a couple dates set up. But where you're at matters. If you want to be around a lot of girls on a day-to-day basis, the city is the best place, and it's also where the single girls go. And also, again, your occupation will have a lot of control, and even a part-time occupation. Like bartenders, we always push that. Anything that you work in the nightlife, even if you're working the door as security, photographers, anybody working with social events. But again, that bartending kind of gets you into the events, but it gives you a reason to be there. You can get paid, and you can also build your skills and meet people at the same time. But again, your environment matters. Just know that your environment matters. When if you just want to really push your game and go to the top, you're going to have to go to New York, LA, or Miami. That's just where you're going to, even just getting your foot in the door, you have to be in the right place. Next slide. Let's see what else we got here. I know I have like 2 more. I'm at 16 minutes. One thing, like we said, we always recommend drinks. And as you get a little bit older, you're going to run into, when you're over 40 and you hear, I don't drink, 99% of the time they're a recovering alcoholic. That means they've got lots of damage. Guys will stop drinking in their 50s or 60s, usually when they're on their like 5th or 10th DUI, and they're already in their 3rd divorce. None of their kids talk to them. And then they'll decide, when they're like 64, 65, and they're having liver problems, I probably should go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, girls aren't like that. They'll quit for 2 reasons. The number one reason is, if they catch themselves driving drunk with their kids, not just driving drunk, they'll do that. But if they catch themselves, or a friend catches them driving impaired with their children, they'll stop and intervene. They'll tend to stop. The other one is where they keep waking up. And this is the second reason, and the more common. They keep waking up not knowing where they're at, naked with a strange man or men. And they're literally doing this every weekend or every 3 or 4 days. And it's somebody they've never met before. And they don't know what's going on. They're just having lots of random sex for years. And then they decide one day, or they end up pregnant, and they're like, okay, I've got to stop drinking. So those are the 2 things. But the point is that if they stop drinking, the damage has already been done. And almost like Sam says, I'm close to 40 now, but in my late 20s, I knew a lot of female friends who stopped drinking all of a sudden, and something about it just didn't feel right. You kind of knew something was up. You weren't sure what. You didn't have enough years under your belt, but I couldn't articulate it. When I saw your post about the topic, a light bulb immediately went off in my head. Absolutely. They had woke up, what did I say, accurate, the 5th or 50th time she wakes up naked with a man or men she doesn't know in a hotel room, she stops drinking, at least for a little while. But usually it's when they'll take a good heart, like Sam says, they just go, I'm not drinking anymore. And it might last a year or 2. And like Sonny says, under 30, late 20s. And I've heard that a bit lately. Again, if you're out and about, you'll start hearing it. And the more girls you run into, the more often you'll hear it. So just know, you're not here to rescue anybody. You're not going to fix anybody. Let her be someone else's problem. You have better things to do. Pass on it. I don't care how sexy and fucked up she is, because we always talk about like the problematic 8s. And there'll be about 38. They're an 8. They're the best looking girl that you fucked, and she's an alcoholic. And now you got a problem on your hands. So be careful out there. When you're over 40 and you hear, I don't drink, 99% of the time they're a recovering alcoholic, which means there is a lot of damage. And last one, this Greenwich Gooner. God bless this man. He had a bad day yesterday. Hottest girl I've ever seen in my life at Equinox right now. Not exaggerating. And the next one proved one of my rules. And of course, it's the day I look and smell homeless. He couldn't even approach her because he was not prepared. And like I always say, and any player will tell you, always have pride in your appearance. Never leave the house in sweats, flip-flops, dirty hair, and a baseball cap. When you do, you will inevitably, just like this gentleman, find yourself in the presence of a nympho 8-9 who just broke up with her boyfriend, looking for a dick to console her, but unfortunately you look like a hobo. So keep that in mind. Do not walk out looking like shit. Always have a minimum amount of pride in your appearance. That way you don't get caught short. And inevitably, you said, I'm just going to run down. I just got to run. I'm going to jump in the car and drive to Target. And you step into the elevator and one of the best looking women you've ever seen is right there. That's what happens. And you just have to look at your feet because you know you look like shit and you smell like shit. And you look like hell and nothing's going to recover. I've known guys that still, pitch it because they can't say no, but your chances of success are always better if you look the part. So always have pride in your appearance, because the chances of you running into that once in a lifetime chick increase when you do stupid shit. And there's a good chance, you might get lucky. So you want to at least have your minimum level of game ready to go, but always have pride in your appearance. And I don't think there's any questions. Bunny reminded me now of what I was talking. I mean, she put it in there, and now I remember what I was talking about on an earlier slide. I'm all over the place. Patrick says, good-looking guys can make most looks work for them. And that's true. I've known guys that could literally wear almost anything and still get away with it and look pretty sharp. Okay, we'll give this a shot. Matt Dempsey asks, and I appreciate you being here, Matt. Question: how would you recommend on how to improve charisma? I heard having major charisma is a superpower. Charisma is learned. Okay, charisma is charm. Game is learned charisma. I was about to start stepping on my dick all of a sudden. Game is charisma. It is learned charisma. To improve that, you improve your game. Does that make sense? I mean, they're one and the same. You're either born with it, which is great. You already got it. But when you improve your game, you improve your charisma. So anything that improves your game, be it your mental acuity, your ability to text girls, your appearance, your physical fitness, and nearly all of this can be improved. And some players have more of one thing than others, because I've seen guys in terrible shape have great charisma. But generally, guys that are having to learn it tend to feel better about themselves if they're in better physical condition. They can think more accurately. They have a clearer head. There's all kinds of benefits. And they look the part. It helps. Again, when you see really, like you might see a chubby guy with a 9, pay attention. The guy's got something going for him. I say the same thing like when I see an older, balding gentleman in his 60s or 70s with a smoke show. I pay attention because he's got something going for him. It ain't just the money. There's money everywhere. There's something, he's doing something that is charismatic. He's got a personality. Because money's everywhere, and money doesn't attract women as much as most people think. But again, you need to watch those guys. When you see somebody, you see an unattractive man with a beautiful wife or girlfriend, pay attention. He's going to do things that show that he has game. Anything helps. Yes, game. Remember, game itself. The definition of game is learned charisma. Some people are born with charisma. Some of us are all born with a certain amount. But when you learn game, it improves your charisma. And just like Toastmasters works, I've had guys that have trouble talking. They're like, I can do everything and I know what to do, but I'm not good at like talking to girls. We say watch comedy shows, and if you have to take improvisational acting, it forces you to think on your feet. And this is one of those things that when I look back, I got lucky. Even though I was playing sports and doing everything, active and like a dude, I also got into acting a bit early on, and we did improvisation where you had to think on your feet in front of an audience and make up a story or a play. Usually humorous. It had to have some kind of humor, kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyways? But basically, high schoolers doing that. And also extemporaneous speaking, where you're given a topic and you have like 10 minutes to do a 5-part speech on it. So you learn how to start thinking on your feet and organizing things in your head as you're in the middle of it. And then I worked at a comedy club for like 2 years in my first 2 years of college. And I didn't realize how much it was helping me until I started like crushing shit tests, just because just being around those comedians, even though I was working like security, just being around them and hearing them do their stuff, their acts, made me faster. And you start getting around that, and you have comebacks and you have one-liners. And I realized like pretty quickly I was able to crush shit tests with women very quickly. So all of these things together, again, help you mentally become faster, because a lot of that is what, and we always say like watch the comedy shows, because it'll give you timing, and you get one-liners from them, and you hear them work the audience, and you also watch their acts, so you get some good jokes. Again, all these things add up. And Toastmasters is good. Anything where you can get used to talking in front of people, either 1 or 100 or 1,000, it doesn't matter. But again, it'll make you faster on your feet. Anything that can help you with mental acuity and responding to questions. That's the deal. And then once you start having a script, that's why I always tell guys to have a system to count. That way they can say, I'm going to do this and do this and this, and kind of guide her through the day. But that's what charisma is. And I think we'll probably do a thing on charisma itself, or learn charisma specifically over time. Gives you good points, because sometimes guys are jumping in here and they're not sure what this is all about. But I appreciate your question. I hope I answered it to the best of my ability. Again, charisma is game. They are one and the same. Game is learn charisma. And gentlemen, if you guys have a great day, I appreciate you watching at this late hour of 12 o'clock. And I will be back here in theory. And most likely it's 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, Wednesday. And Matt, we will circle back on Saturday and cover your sex question. And I appreciate you guys being here. Have a great day.